There is something ancient in the grain of wood, something that predates carpentry and architecture, something that belongs to forests and storms and the quiet drama of trees growing toward the sky. When an artist carves an organic abstract wood sculpture, they are not simply cutting a shape from a block. They are listening to a story already written into that timber. They hear the echoes of sap rising, the slow expansion of rings, the tension of wind bending a branch, the slow release of stress when roots hold tight to soil. And in the studio, under the hum of a distant saw, that story stretches and shifts as the hands of the sculptor guide each cut, each shave, each sand. In the end, the piece that emerges is less a finished object than a conversation between human intention and natural impulse. That tension, between the living history of wood and the restless creativity of the maker, is what gives organic abstract wood sculptures their magnetism. At first glance, an organic abstract piece might seem almost formless, like a wave caught in mid-tumble, or a torn fragment of bark suspended in space. Yet closer inspection reveals the logic of the wood, a gentle curve following the unbroken line of a branch, a hollow that once housed sap now carved into a channel of shadow, a knot left intact as a fulcrum around which the form spirals. Nothing is random. The drift of a chisel, the arc of a rasp. Each move responds to something alive in the material. And though the end result dissolves the memory of bench or table or vessel, it braids the elegance of nature with the precision of craft in ways that feel both mysterious and inevitable. Imagine an ash beam, salvaged from an abandoned barn, its surface weathered gray by sun and storm. The artist breaks it free from a larger structure, carrying it home like a fossil. In the workshop, under the glare of halogen lamps, they examine the grain, an irregular, sinuous pattern that dances around areas where the wood once twisted from a branch. They mark a rough outline, a silhouette that might echo the lean of a reed in the wind, then set their grinder in motion. Sparks fly, smoke curls, and gradually, a wave-like form appears as if the beam itself had decided to fold upon itself. The lines flow without hesitation, guided by the grain, deepening toward hollows, rising toward ridges. The result is a sculpture that feels like a momentary freeze frame of a living thing in motion, an ash wave cresting silently, caught mid-fold. Its surface is raw and smoky where the grinder scorched it, then sanded to a velvety smoothness that invites fingers to trace every fold. In places, tiny ridges tease the eye with the memory of bark. In others, long sweeps of polished wood glow golden in the evening light. Then consider a chunk of redwood, heavy and ancient, once part of a tangle of roots hidden under leaf litter. It lies in the studio on a block, looking like an unremarkable stump, but to the artist, it's a treasure chest of hidden possibilities. They start by splitting it along natural fissures, guided by lines that seem drawn in charcoal across its rough face. A mortise chisel and mallet coax the wood apart, revealing a pattern of swirling grain, layers upon layers of dense rings. In one half, they uncover a cavity that once sheltered water. They lean into that hollow, carving it deeper, letting it open like a cave mouth. Around the edges, they whittle gentle ridges, which spiral upward, tapering into tapered points that resemble new shoots. The interplay of negative space and positive mass creates tension, weight, but also air. When the work is done, the redwood form looks like an abstract seed pod, split open to release its energy, alive and poised, yet static in stillness. It's both an echo of a primordial forest and a wholly contemporary object, as if the tree had revealed its own deeper structure, and the artist simply translated it into 3 dimensions. In a different studio corner, a mahogany burl, knobbly, twisted, full of compressed grain, awaits transformation. This burl was dredged from a sawmill waste pile, the discarded heart of a tree once living. The artist cradles it in their arms, feeling its weight, noticing how each knot bulges unpredictably, how every curve hides another valley. They draw no plans. Instead, they begin shaving thin layers away with a hand plane, following the rhythm of the swirls. Slowly, an organic form emerges that looks like the skeletal remains of a sea creature, an arc that coils 3/4 around itself, revealing a hollow core at its center. The inner surfaces are sculpted smooth. The outer surfaces keep the warped history of the burl, knobby and tentative. It hovers on a metal stand, balanced as if ready to roll forward, but never quite doing so. It suggests motion, but its energy is contained, like a spring waiting to release. When visitors approach, they want to reach out and trace the lines but often hesitate, for fear of marring that delicate balance between raw burl and refined interior. Elsewhere, a sculptor uses olive wood, dense, flecked with black veins. Starting with a thick slab, they chisel away the bulk, leaving behind a skeletized lattice, an interlocking pattern of ribs and chambers. The form recalls ancient architecture, a ruin hewn by natural forces rather than war, as if a temple grew from the wood itself. Each opening is measured for light and shadow, each thread of wood carved with intention. The eye travels through openings and tunnels, discovering new planes behind unexpected angles. The sculpture is mounted on a low plinth of contrasting ebony, grounding the pale olive form and giving it the illusion of floating in space. In the late afternoon, sunlight streams through the windows, casting intricate, shifting shadows onto the floor, ghostly tracery that dances as daylight fades. In that moment, the sculpture is both wood and light, weight and absence, tangible and ephemeral. Some artists work at a different scale. They begin with massive logs, sawn into thick discs, then stacked in layers, each one offset just slightly from the one beneath. As they carve back into each layer, they reveal nested curves that spiral inward. What results is a towering column of wood rings, like a tree's rings magnified into a three-dimensional labyrinth. Viewed from above, you see concentric circles. From the side, you see cascading folds that resemble ripples in slow-moving water. The exterior bears the scars of chainsaw and adze, rough to the touch, while the interior walls are sanded to a soft, warm finish that invites closer inspection. Each layer catches light differently. By nightfall, small LED strips hidden beneath the top disc cast an inner glow, turning the sculpture into a lantern of wood and shadow. It breathes in the darkness, a silent drumbeat of form and void, motion and stillness intertwined. Still others find poetry in smaller, handheld forms. A cupped piece of driftwood, its edges softened by salt water and sand, becomes a canvas for abstract carving. The artist etches delicate lines that trace the curves of the driftwood's grain, then hones the surfaces so that some catch light and others sink into gentle shadow. The final object, slightly the size of a human palm, feels almost like a talisman, something you might hold when you need comfort. Its form is unpredictable. One side curves inward like a hollowed shell, the other fans outward like a leaf. Still others find poetry in smaller, handheld forms. A cupped piece of driftwood, its edges softened by salt water and sand, becomes a canvas for abstract carving. The artist etches delicate lines that trace the curves of the driftwood's grain, then hones the surfaces so that some catch light and others sink into gentle shadow. The final object, slightly the size of a human palm, feels almost like a talisman, something you might hold when you need comfort. Its form is unpredictable. One side curves inward like a hollowed shell, the other fans outward like a leaf. What looks like happenstance is actually deeply considered. A concave channel leads the eye from one edge to the other, a subtle ridge anchors the view, and the entire shape balances in your hand as if it were breathing. More than a sculpture, it becomes a meditation. People find themselves absent-mindedly turning it over, tracing those lines, drawing calm from the tactile dance between wood and light. Yet not all organic abstract work arises from the solitary craftsperson. Some happens on a public scale as installations in open spaces. Massive beams repurposed into undulating arches that visitors can walk beneath, as if strolling through the ribs of some ancient creature. Or monumental slabs carved so deeply that they create natural benches and leaning platforms, places to sit, to contemplate, to commune with wood as an elemental force. In a park, one such installation might consist of a grove of tall polished columns of spalted maple, each column carved with fractal patterns that seem to bloom like ice crystals. From a distance, the grove appears as a stand of frozen trees. Up close, the sun glints off the finely rippled surfaces as if private rivers of light flow through the wood. Passers-by lean against them, listen to the soft hum of wind, and trace their fingers along grooves that merge and diverge like topographic lines on a map. Here, art becomes environment, a place to wander, to touch, to lose yourself for a moment in the language of wood. Underlying all this is a reverence for the material's life. Even in the roughest cuts, you can see places where the wood resisted, where grain shifted, where knots fought back. The sculptor doesn't try to hide these conflicts. Instead, they celebrate them. A burl's wild swirl becomes a kind of visual drum. A crack becomes an axis around which the form pivots. A split sheath of bark remains raw in one section, anchoring the piece in memory, even as other sections are whittled smooth. These organic abstractions are not perfect. They are honest. They speak of growth and decay, of storms and steady sunshine, of years that happen beyond the window pane. They remind us that wood is never just material. It is living tissue, concentrated history. Techniques vary widely from hand tools, boring bits, chisels, planes, scrapers, to power tools, chainsaws, grinders, CNC routers. Some artists combine methods. They begin by roughly splitting a log with wedges, then refine forms with a lathe or band saw, and finally use hand rasps and sandpaper to draw out minute undulations in the wood's heart. A favorite trick among certain sculptors is to carve the form first with large power tools, then go back with carving knives to enhance the grain lines, to coax out hidden strands of figure and flame. A final step often involves finishing with oils, tung oil, linseed oil, beeswax, applied in thin coats so that the wood continues to breathe. The finish deepens the color, accentuates the grain, and invites touch without feeling cold or slick.